The following program is sponsored by The Greek, Ely's Radio Shack dealer at 570 Altman in downtown Ely, and brought to you as a public service by Georgetown Media in Ely, Nevada. Ely Municipal Utility Board meeting, April 8th, 2021.
That calls the meeting of the Ely Municipal Utility Board of April 8th order, please. Would you please follow me in the pledge of allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Chairman O'Flaherty.
Here.
Vice Chairman Gurditch.
Present.
Member Ross.
Here.
Member Lilly.
Present.
Councilman Carson.
Here.
Councilman Spear.
Here.
City Engineer Almberg.
Here.
City Clerk Lee. Here. City Treasurer HR Director Trask. Here. Public Works Supervisor Craycraft.
Here.
And that's all.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Public comment not exceeding 3 minutes in length will be accepted from the general public in attendance. If any are made, there may be discussion upon these comments. No vote, discussion, or action may be taken upon matters raised under the items those formally placed on the agenda. Comments during discussion items will not be accepted from the general public as per section 705 of the Nevada Open Meeting Law. Public comment, please. Morning, George.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, on your agenda item 3C1 here to consider water leak at the golf course, there should be no discussion until they pay their bill in full at the same rate as other entities. They were not billed properly due to duct tape being found in the water meter. The water meter was intentionally sabotaged. They need to pay the average use when the meter was functioning properly. You should have that in your computer. Federal law mandates you cannot discriminate in any federally funded or assisted utility. The county golf course is looking for a sweetheart deal. Golf is a luxury, not a necessity. Have they paid for the 111 million gallons as reported by Councilman Allworth at a previous meeting? I've not seen that. Was the service ever shut off like you do others? I've not seen that. I want to remind you, your auditors have stated that you must show the true cost of doing business. And again, you're not doing that. Mr. Chairman, I've not received an answer in regards to the disposition of the 490 linear feet of 16-inch steel pipe for the Murray Street project. I remind you, NRS 281.481 forbids public employees or officials from any preference in buying or selling public property. This request is over a year old. Your staff and you need to provide an answer or resign. That's a lot of money there, folks. Your contract stated exactly how that pipe was supposed to be disseminated, where it was supposed to go. It didn't happen. Mr. Chairman, former employee of the city that dealt with license and billing related to Councilman Spear no longer works for the city. The city needs to conduct an audit of that position in the billing. Again, did she have a bond? I want to remind you that my billing for the property that I have at 490 High Street has yet to be corrected. I remind you that I was charged $746.65 for outside capital improvement when there is no such thing. I paid the billing and the interest as directed earlier, yet my most recent bill is for $1,429.61. Correct the billing. Hire competent staff or resign. The city needs to stop the discrimination. This has gone on for years. Where's the simple math? Mr. Chairman, I've not received an answer in regards to Avenue A. Did the city purchase that property, and I want to know how much? Or did the city install a utility on private property which is not allowed by NRS? I'm waiting for an answer, sir. Mr. Chairman, in numerous meetings I've reported squatters, RVs around the community. I've yet to receive anything in regards to whether they've been billed for water, sewer, landfill. Some of these go back to 2020.
Thank you, George.
I've yet to receive an answer. I'd like something, please. Can I get an answer?
Thank you, George. Any other public comment? I know Randy here, we do have on agenda item number 1. If you have interest that you'd like to speak to an agenda item, Randy, allow that. So, feel free to speak at that time. Any other public comment? Very good. Consent agenda, these items may be approved in one motion by the board as its first action of business under for discussion and possible action item. Approval of the consent agenda approves each of these items. Board members may remove any item from the consent agenda by notifying the board chair. We have a motion to move to approve consent agenda items 3A, 1 minute.
I abstain as I wasn't here for last meeting.
I'll motion.
March 11, 2021. We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Public comment? No public comment. We'll move on to old business. Board members. Robinson Nevada Mine Company, RNMC representative discussion only, update the utility board on the Robinson Nevada development and water mitigation efforts within the city of Ely.
Chairman O'Flaherty, I received an email from Treasurer this morning. Hello, Jennifer. I may not be able to attend today's utility board meeting, and I am by this email providing you an update on old business item B1, roof pit development and water mitigation efforts within the city of Ely. Robinson continues to mine from the roof pit complex. Here's a breakdown of freshwater dewatering effort from the south block. Number 1, about 10,623 gallons per minute is being pumped. Our W7P accounts for 1,510 gallons per minute, which is sent to the city of Ely. 2, about 5,449 gallons per minute is going into Gleason Creek. 3, the rest is going to the mill for ore processing. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, Frederick.
Very good. Does anybody have any concerns or questions for Frederick? That's a pretty standard letter we receive all the time. I see that we're still wasting 5,449 gallons of the Gleason Creek for dewatering. Interesting. Very good. Let's go and move on to new business. Do you have any public comment on that, George? Okay. Move on to new business. Councilman Carson, White Pine County Commissioner Shane Bivey. Discussion of possible action, discussion regarding possible solutions to the golf course water needs with possible recommendations of course of action. Good morning, Councilman Shane.
Good morning, board members, Mr. Chairman. It is a pleasure to be here today, once again. So what we have been discussing and is it came to our attention that the building right with the Ruth McGill Water District, there was a discounted rate for another municipal organization, and so it has been calculated by the engineer that the golf course water usage would be approximately 47.2 million gallons per year. What we are asking is that you would approve us the same rate, the 20, I can't remember the exact 20, it's roughly 27 cents per 1,000 gallons with a cap of the 47.2 million gallons. And then if we exceed the 47.2 million gallons, then it would revert back to the standard rate.
I see, Shane, that we have two proposals here, two revisions.
So I can probably take that one. Revision 1 is kind of when we all met with Mr. O'Flaherty and Mr. Bivey. And then revision 2 was kind of some thoughts from the city side. It would be easier for us for billing purposes if we broke that 47 million gallons for the 7 months down into per month, which equates to the 6.75 monthly bill, and then you guys would have an even amount of 7 monthly bills, if that makes sense. Instead of waiting until the end and figuring out your way over or way under, it'd be easier for us to do that monthly. And then I also modified the last bullet point with revisiting it in 2 years. We really would like to encourage the county to get their own well within 2 years. And we kind of talked about that as well, so
Absolutely.
that's the revisions there that I came up with.
Yeah, the ultimate goal is to modify our well to where we can run independently. The question I would have on these equal months billings.
Yeah.
So, say May, we only utilize 4 million gallons, and in July, we use 12 million. Or do the 2 million gallons that we don't use in May, do we get to use that in July, or do we, as soon as we exceed that amount, do we begin paying the standard rate? Or does it?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I see what you're
Yeah.
saying on that. What's your thoughts on that, Jeanette?
That's up to you guys.
No.
Well, I mean, I think you're putting the course a little bit at risk here by just giving them a cap per month. I mean, obviously, every month's going to be a little bit different based on weather conditions, wind conditions, you know, that we have no control over. So I think you're jeopardizing, you know, the golf course to a certain extent if you do it that way.
I mean, I have no problem at all with breaking it into 6 even months. I would just like to see on the shoulder months, the unused balance of that water be able to be transferred to the higher demand months.
I would be okay with that. We can pass that on to the council tonight.
I have a question, how do you determine the 47.2 million?
So that was
Well,
BJ's
okay.
number.
Brian Godon has a farm just right close to the golf course, and he said he has 50 acres, and he uses 50,000 gallons a year. We have 50 million gallons a year. So we're at, what, 87? How many acres? I mean, so we're not,
Roughly 87 acres?
Yeah.
so we're not, you know, it'd be fair to go, I don't know how you figure.
And I don't know if
how you
it's
figure-
overwatering, underwatering, I mean,
Well, you just
everything's
raise,
different, you know?
no, if you just raise enough up. I mean, it's not like you're gonna have a water.
I'll let you answer this one.
All I can answer is how I came about that calculation. You know, I'm no farmer, rancher, or landscaper. I just basically looked up on the internet, and just said it wasn't.
Mike was catching. Can you just pull the mic up just a little bit, closer to your mouth? Perfect.
And Jerry, we don't want you to get
That's
hollered
better,
at.
thank you, appreciate it.
What'd you say?
We do not want you to be hollered at from the general public.
I thank
Please
you very-
speak into the microphone.
Thank you very much. So what I did is I just searched the internet for what it takes to water grass, and I just came across a factor that said, you know, I think it says in here, 1 inch per week, I believe is what it was, that it took to water.
1 inch per week, wasn't it?
Yes, I think it was 1 inch per week, and then I just did that calculation based on the 87 acres.
I mean, the problem with that is you have different kind of grass at a golf course than you do at your lawn. I mean,
Sure.
I mean, that's,
And that would also, I'm sorry, that would also be based on their watering time.
No, the calculation would be based on the amount of water it takes to keep grass green, not on their, I didn't do a calculation based on their watering time.
Okay.
This was just a calculation that said, hey, grass can thrive and be green at 1 inch per week, and that over 87 acres can actually be the 47.2 million as a calculation. You know, and that's it. I'm not, like I said, I'm no expert. I don't know exactly what type of grass it is, different factors for different grasses.
Yeah.
I just took it broad.
Is that just
Okay.
kind of a national average then? Each year?
I guess, is whatever the internet told me, that's what I took.
The norm, that would be the norm.
Hey, that's being honest.
I know, I'm being honest. I'm not an
I
expert.
know, but the norm for a high desert area is not the same norm for Florida.
You need a sharper pencil.
You borrow.
I don't want you to get cut yet.
If I may address that, please, as well. We did a national average of rainfall in the United States, and it's 38.7 inches of rain a year. The least amount of rain in the United States is the state of Nevada at 9.7. So to offset and tell us that we're only going to get an inch, you've got the rest of the country getting 38 inches, we're only getting a quarter of that amount of water. So we need to have a little more parameter for the high desert, very arid climate, and we lose that golf course in the hot months. You looked at your roads last year, they're bug dust. Our golf course suffered immensely as well. And we didn't have a cap on water before, so anyways, I want to see the place protected.
Sure, you can, I mean, obviously, golf course has a major, cost in developing and maintaining the course, and we want to do that. And, I think we're trying to come to a reasonable agreement with the cost per gallon, which I think we're on the right track for sure. I guess a couple of unknowns we don't have, and that is what is the actual, gallonage that we're going to actually use.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I think BJ did a good job on the average and coming up with the basis. We do have some unknowns. I don't know what the actual figure is going to be. I guess the overall concern is we want to make sure, we don't lose any grass. Okay, and the golf course still is a viable place for recreation. So I really don't know if we're going to be set in the 47.2 million, or if that's something that maybe we want to revisit in a few months, see what it looks like.
We can definitely see what summer brings and how close we are. We just,
the one thing that concerns me just a little bit, and I don't have an issue with the golf course paying for water. I mean, I think everybody is in agreement of that. The general public is requesting that. The county is willing to maybe step up and help us in this matter. I think the golf course's budget doesn't really have any money for water. Just one question, BJ, I had for you. I noticed that we still have overflow from the courthouse tanks right now. We're not utilizing all the water that's available to the city either right now.
As of yesterday, the ditch was wet.
Did the ditch quit yesterday?
The ditch was wet yesterday.
Okay, that's when once watering started. Okay.
Yes.
And when does that usually return? About in October, September?
Oh, you're talking about overflow stuff?
Yeah.
It kind of varies, but yeah, I'm gonna say later in the fall for sure.
Okay. So, I mean, one thing that, I think we need to be concerned about is that we do have overflow, and there's a generous amount of water being available. I mean, I'd like to really see the golf course use it rather than going down the creek. I mean, I think that's just, could be viable, okay?
Speaking to Delta over there, Casey, he used to use 1 million gallons a night during his peak season. Now that could be 90 days of hot weather. I mean, they're lower than we are, and that's a lot of water. But you have to keep that golf course alive. We need to be able to bank. I can understand the level payments, but we need to be able to bank because we can regulate our shoulders. We can just keep it alive, but when we're hot, we gotta put that water to it. And then as far as, if there's any timing, as far as, we need to be able to see our issues. We need to be able to turn water on during the day now and again to look at our issues. If we overseed, I have to keep that seed wet. There's just certain times of the day you've got to be able to see your product. You can't be out there all night and take care of those areas. So, but we need to be able to bank that water. If we're paying X in May and we've only used X, we've got to be able to have that reserve and use that as needed when it gets hot, or we're going to lose it.
sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable, thank you. Any other concerns or comments that anybody would like to bring up?
It seems like this may be something that we would like to review further into the process. Would the board be willing to, once we got into summer a little bit more, revisit this? And maybe, would you be willing to look at adjusting that cap if we see that the usage is going to take more to keep the facility viable?
Well, I think there's so many unknowns here. I think that almost you have to do that. I mean, we're doing, BJ did a calculation to the best of his ability. I mean, I'm not sure any other way of doing it. I mean, we don't know what the weather conditions are going to be. I mean,
Too many variables.
I think it's a lot of variables with it, but I do believe that the basic concept is great here. I do. I mean, I think this gives the city what they wanted, and hopefully it puts a little bit of cap on the golf course to conserve water. Okay, and I think I personally like the comment, and if we need to revisit, then I think we just need to be open to revisiting it.
Excellent. And I was just curious, one question for BJ. Did that figure, was that 1 inch total, did that include 1 inch including rainfall, or was that?
That was just a straight 1 inch.
Just a straight 1 inch is what it, okay, very good. Thank you.
Any other concerns, questions? Very good. So we need to put this into a motion. So I'd make a motion that, what's this on?
Are you going to do public comment, or are you going to do a motion first?
We're going to do a motion, George.
Thank you.
There's my telephone going off. Like put this into a motion that the golf course water be charged at a reduced rate based on the McGill-Ruth rate, and that at the present time that we're looking at $47.2 million, and it's kind of a combination of revision 1 and 2 that the city council can look at with possible volumes being carried over from 1 month to the other month, and the ability to come back to the utility board and the city council at a later date if this needs to be adjusted or commented. I'll put that into motion.
I second that motion.
We have a motion on the floor. Seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion unanimously carries. Thank you. Public comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the billing for the golf course should be no different than any other area. If they use less in 1 month than the next, that's fine. It's reflected in what the use is by the meter. No special deals. You can't put them in the same classification as Ruth McGill water. They're serving communities. This again is a luxury. It's not a necessity. You can't do that. It's unfair. I want to remind you that any water that does go down that ditch, you have a lease that you're making money off of on the Georgetown Ranch. There's no guarantee for water, but if you cut all of that water off, you have a problem with the leasee. That's not right. They're willing to accept what comes down that ditch. The golf course has to live with what they need and pay for what they need, and no special deals, because you don't give that to anybody else. That motion should have died. That recommendation needs to be withdrawn.
Public comment, Shane?
Yes, I just, I wanted to just express my gratitude to the board for being willing to work with us on this. You know, we're in an unprecedented time where the city and the county are working together on levels that have never been seen before. We have cooperative agreements for fire in our road department, and all of it, these issues, we've been working together, and I just wanted to tell you how much the county really appreciates all of your willingness to be partners with us. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. Any other public comment? Randy?
Yeah, I'd just like to mention too that we were self-sufficient on our own wells until that well was put in, and it did impact our aquifer, and we were not able to service ourselves, and we were self-sufficient prior to that, so, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? No other public comment? We move on to item number 2. Councilman Carson, discussion of possible action, possible recommendations regarding Robinson Nevada Mine Company request that the city of Ely assume ownership of wells located at 17th Avenue M, 10th and Avenue M, the Terrace and Golf Course Well. Kurt.
Thank you. So we've been in negotiations with the mine for quite some time over the water issues around here. And they indicated that we need to take over ownership of these 4 wells before they come back to the negotiation table. So, in our committee, we really can't say yes or no on that, so I wanted to bring it in front of you guys in the city council tonight and get everyone's thoughts on this. To me, I have no knowledge of the mine owning the 2 wells on 17th and M and 10th and M. Excuse me. Those have been there forever. I know they haven't worked on them, so I don't know what kind of ownership they think they have in them, but I have no documentation that would say that they own those. The terrace well was drilled by them, the building was the city of Ely's, and the golf course well, I believe they paid for all of that. And I believe the city owns the land with a deal from the county. They did some land trading back then, but that's kind of all I know about that at this point. I just kind of wanted to get everyone's thoughts. To me, the ownership on the golf course well is a little leery at this point. Just like Mr. Long just stated, that new golf course well could have impacted the old golf course wells. So if the city of Ely was to take over possession of the new golf course well, I'm wondering about the liability on our shoulders. So that is concerning to me.
I agree. I mean, I guess, BJ, you probably want to get up here too, so we can comment on this maybe a little bit together. I guess, you know, obviously, who owns the land? Is the deed in the city of Ely's, or is it in the mine? Who's the water rights involved on these particular wells? I have no knowledge of 17th and M that the Provincetown Mines have done any upgrades or any involvement in that particular well at all. In 10th and M, I know they did a new vertical turbine in that particular one and did some renovation in the electrical and in the piping of it, which was incorrect on the original installation, I should say. On the terrace, obviously, they were very supportive of that, okay? And I think that in our previous meetings, we had indicated that we did not want to take ownership until it was actually a functional facility. So I believe now we're probably at that point. It is a functional facility. And of course, the golf course well is a great well, but unfortunately, you cannot use it to production. It needs to be used. So, what's your comments?
Well, my comments are very similar to what Kirk said, and very similar to what you were saying yourself. Is you know, 17th and M, I don't know that they have done any improvements. That well's been there for many years. They didn't install the well, and so I'm not even aware of them making any upgrades or any other improvements to it. So I don't know where that 17th and M comes from. 10th and M, you are correct. They did go in, you know, at the beginning of all of this dewatering, and I think they scrubbed the well. They upgraded some equipment in there and did some rehab for sure. Kurt is correct on the terrace. The terrace used to be an existing booster pump for the city of Ely, and so the building was already there. So they didn't put the building up, but they did come in and put a new well. The well and the piping was connected to the exterior of that building, and then the interior piping was modified and changed to fit a well instead of just a booster pump. And so they definitely had an involvement in that location. And in the golf course, they basically pretty much funded the whole golf course and put all those improvements in down at the golf course. You know, I'm not aware of, and I've never seen a document of any type of showing any ownership or whatever. I mean, I think it would be nice to get something out of them and saying, hey, here's how we propose that they provide us some document and said, hey, here's where we're going to propose to provide any interest that they may have in those wells over to the city, so that our committee could review that and bring back with recommendations to the utility board and the city council.
So do they want by ownership, I mean that they don't want to do any maintenance on the pumps? Is that what they're getting at, Kurt?
That's what I would
That's what
suspect.
We got my
But
assumption
if we're still pumping so much water so they can de-water, I mean, that's the result of, we having to pump more because they're de-watering for their business. Why should we, as a city, eat the cost we wouldn't have?
I couldn't agree with you more, yeah.
I think we should ultimately own the wells personally, but I think we need to come up with an amount that we charge them. I mean, if they want us to take them over, then we just increase their rates rates to make sure we, are compensated for it. But I think that the ultimate thing would be for the city to have the wells, whether it's now or in a couple of years. But, I mean, especially with the mine being sold, you never know what's gonna happen. That's something I think we need to take care of, and just make sure the rates and what we charge them is appropriate.
Right, because that creates a big budgetary setup for the city.
But if they don't have the water rights and they own the well, the pump itself, I guess they could take I don't understand, and the golf course well was built on county property when it was.
City.
No, it was built on county property.
They
And
traded,
but they traded afterwards, George.
okay,
It was built.
so now it's city.
It's
It's
now
city now for sure, George.
It was, the engineer didn't see whose property it was when they drove the
Another
well.
dummy.
I guess if they're concerned about ownership, can they give us proof of ownership? What would legal response to that be? What would constitute ownership of the well?
So that's what I want, is some kind of showing that they do have some proof of ownership. And so we don't currently have that, it's just them indicating we own these and wanting to take ownership, so that would be my next request, is show us proof of ownership.
Well, I do believe the underlying condition is that, and another factor we need to take into consideration too. Jeanette, go ahead.
I just have a quick question, because I know those sound like the wells that they pay the power on right now. Is this part of the condition of us taking them over, is taking on the power bill too?
I wouldn't think so, but
That was one thing that I was kind of going to interact with Jeanette. One concern of mine is, what is the mine, they're allocated to pay, or to provide 3,000 gallons a minute to the city of Ely. Okay, and now they're producing 1,500 gallons approximately. So that 1,500 gallons is coming within the city wells. Okay, and they're reimbursing the city for the cost of electricity to provide that other 1,500 gallons. Okay, is that coming from one particular well, or is it a combination of multiple wells?
The way that we're set up now, it would come from a combination of wells. Our SCADA system, and we're trying to run in off-peak hours to keep those power costs down. And so we got the ability to come in here, and so it goes through multiple things. And so 10th and M is running. At times when we need more than our 1,500 that we're getting, the golf course will turn on, 7th and M may turn on. Those are probably the three main wells that turn on regularly, keeping our system operational when they don't provide full 3,000 per year.
So are they paying the electrical costs for multiple wells at this time?
I believe that they are, yes.
So for 10th and M and 17th and M, I'm not sure we're using the terrace well at this time, are we?
We have not really used the terrace well in a normal fashion regularly.
Okay, of course, the golf course well is down too. So. Which obviously has to be done to facilitate their requirement of 3,000 gallons a minute.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm not sure where they're coming from, and it could be I guess we need some clarification from one, ownership from the mine, and two, what their overall intent is here. I really don't know. As far as I'm concerned, if they develop these wells, actually, the intent to develop and build wells.
John, speak in the mic, I can't hear you.
Mic's turned off for some reason. Can't hear it either.
Jesse? I think we lost vision. We'll speak up a little bit for you, George. Okay?
If you would.
Yeah. So anyway, I think we need to get some clarification from the mine what the really intent here is, because I'm a little bit confused. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, I would think that this was agenda items, they could have a representative here to discuss this and kind of clarify it, but obviously that's not the case.
Is there anybody on Zoom today?
My guess is they want to get rid of them for their liability to sell the property. I mean, it just takes away liability on the sale, so that's my opinion.
Well, my question is, how big of a liability are we going to incur
It'll be a huge liability if whoever buys online if it goes out of business, you know, so either way, we're gonna be stuck with it. So,
But I would like more clarification on exactly what the intent is.
I mean,
Maybe we can put that in the motion to have attorneys take paperwork back and forth and see what's going on.
Well, I'll do that anyway. We'll do that anyway.
Okay.
Then you can put in a motion.
Well,
I mean, I guess just for clarification, you know, we should clarify with them that just because if they, you know, deed over what interest they may have in any of these situations to us, that it isn't their intent to break away from the existing agreement to pay for our power bills and other things that are associated with it that's currently going on. That just because they deed that over doesn't change any of that existing agreements we have with it. Things are happening today.
I agree with you, BJ, and another concern of mine is that in the future, I mean, let's say we lose one of our main pumps. Is that cost going to be incurred by the city? Maybe they can go in there and replace that pump, okay, to meet their demands or their needs? Okay, I think that needs to be clarified. I don't know if that's the underlying condition that they're looking at. So, yeah, I think we need to get some clarification, obviously. It'd be really helpful if they could be here and represent.
Well, I think everything that was expressed today is very similar to what we're trying to accomplish through our negotiation committee, is because with the fact that the recovery of 6P and 7P has now been postponed, you know, as longer than it was per the original agreement, you know, those are all points that have been raised, you know, through our committee. You know, Dale raised some points today saying, hey, you know, they're not providing us this 3,000 GPM now, so that's actually extra maintenance cost for us because we're running equipment that we normally would not have had to. And so it definitely is putting wear and tear on our existing equipment. And those are all points that, you know, as our committee, we've all recognized and we're trying to work through. It just seems like, Kirsten, this is a situation they want to clarify this and move on to the next issue in the negotiations.
Other questions or concerns? Do we want to move this again on maybe the next meeting, agenda clarification, of what the one wants?
Yeah, see if we have any paperwork for that.
Yeah, yeah. So let's make a motion to, for the mind to provide some additional clarification and intent in reference to item number 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on, public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, mine doesn't own any of those wells. The 17th and M was drilled behind the county to service Stepwell Park prior to making an agreement with the city to turn it over. The others,
No, George, you got your fact
who drilled the well?
on there.
City.
The city drilled it, but Steptoe Park is on their own well.
Is what?
Steptoe Park is on their own well.
County has
On their own well?
Yes.
Own well. They do not use city water.
Okay, all right, I thought that's the one you were talking about. Aside from that, in that agreement with the mine, they need to provide the city with water. And part of that, I thought, was to pay for the drilling and the maintenance of the pumps because of the impact they made on us when they dewatered the mine and affected Murray Springs. Now, all of a sudden, they say they own these wells. They need to prove that. Why would anybody allow someone to drill and place a well on their property without some kind of agreement? I think this is bogus. I don't doubt they're trying to cut their costs up there. That's fine. But they have an agreement, an obligation of the city to provide water and not to skirt the issues by now saying they own the well and you guys should take over and then do the maintenance on the pumps and all of that. Once Murray Springs comes back, then all of this is gone. But until then, there's an obligation. You need to go back through your minutes, you need to go through your contract. Thank you.
So noted. Any other public comment? No other public comment, we'll move on. Board member, City Clerk Lee, discussion for possible action for approval, recommendations to extend the will serve of the NDOT Elite Truck Wash Project, NDOT CIR 133 project number 73973 from August 2021 to December 2022, the delay of the project in 2020.
NDOT contacted the city of Ely, and on advice from our council, they do need to request an extension of this will serve.
I see we have the plans, the documentation from previously.
It's my understanding from the email that Aaron Smith with NDOT sent me that they'll be bidding the project in July.
Okay. I personally don't see an issue with that. I don't know if other board members have concern on that. I think it will definitely be improvement. Still seeing a creek going down alongside the road. No, I can't believe they got away with that many years. Very good. Do we have a motion on this?
Yeah, I'll motion.
Motion to approve agenda item number 3, the will serve for NDOT. We have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried unanimously. Public comment? No public comment. We'll move on to item 4, City Clerk Lee, discussion of possible action, recommendation to remove past due utility fee penalties up to amount of $2,164.72 from 110 West 9th North 1. That is a request of property owner Joe Messina. Okay. Close.
So Mr. Massini paid his total landfill charges due in the amount of $1,524, and so he is requesting a waiver of the penalties.
Very good. When they come in. Any concerns from board members?
No, sir.
No concerns. We have a motion.
I move.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Motion to second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Public comment?
Question. That monthly fee is fairly high. Is that a business or what is that?
I do not know, George.
You got staff here. Take your time. You mean, money, mo, I'd like an answer. 56,
Does it make a
75.
difference whether it's a business or a private entity?
Yeah,
Does it?
it does.
Want to explain why?
Yeah, normally residential would be $13 or whatever. What does this consist of? I'd like to know. Water, sewer, combination?
I think it's a combination of multiple.
Well, it's Lund, so it's not water and sewer.
So it's
Yeah,
just
I
landfill
would
fees?
have to check into that.
Yeah.
That's right, it is land. So there's no water sewer. Is it landfill? If it is landfill, that seems awful high for residents.
I'm sure if there was concern of the resident or the business owner, they'd be taking that up. The simple fact is.
Unfortunately, a lot of
The
people
simple
don't
fact
know.
is that we have a recourse from that, and we have no other recourse to collect it, other than we have to do it.
A
We
lot of
can't
people
shut
don't
the
know.
water off, we can't shut the sewer off. so
No, I
we shouldn't
understand
have
that.
to get in.
I understand that, but you need to know what they're charging, what you're charging them for. Just because those people may be new,
George, I don't think it's arbitrarily picked out of the sky. I think there's some basis for that. If you would like a more depth detail from that, I'm sure we can provide it next week.
that's what I'm asking. I want the detail. I'm tired of the selective billing. I've given you numerous occasions where I've been misbilled, never been corrected. Now I'd like to know what's going on with this person. Thank you.
We have public comment? City Department reports, board members,
None.
nothing to report. I have nothing to report. Councilman Carson,
No report.
we have the written reports from the city public works supervisors, the water operator, water sewer leadman, landfill. Anybody like to make any other comments? Mike, everything else is going fine? Okay. City clerk.
So, we have some good news. Go ahead and notify us this week that we did receive the third phase for Murray Street. So we'll be able to put that sewer Nevada need to have a safety committee if they have over 11 employees. So Public Works Supervisor Craig Kraft is heading that up and adding that to our to-do list.
So noted. City Attorney?
Nothing to report.
City Treasurer? City Engineer?
Keep going with this thing.
You're off the hook.
We've actually been very busy with, the city is going after, it's got quarter group doing some lobbying, trying to get some airmark projects going on. So we've been busy compiling paperwork and getting stuff together for that. And so we're down to our final thing. We have some changes that came about this week that we're taking care of, and we should have that together by Friday. We had a conference call with them on Tuesday morning over this stuff, and we'll get some minutes.
Microphone.
Doesn't work.
We have a malfunctioning microphones, George.
You need to speak up then, please.
Move closer, George.
Grab a hold of yourself. Man up. Can you hear me now?
Our Alton Street project is obviously very busy. They actually, we sent yesterday their first set of back T tests in, passing one section of the line. Yesterday they chlorinated another, pressurized another section, and so we'll get some more back T's for there. So their intention now is they're getting down pretty much to the point of start to put into services. And their goal is they'll keep two lines basically live, existing in the old, until they get those services tied into the new, and then they'll come back in and make some other connections and basically kill the other line. So it's going well. I think they're doing a great job. It's going well. Our sewer project is going on up in the canyon up here. They get to, I think, their second manhole today. Should get up to there. Other than that, things are going a little slow, but everything's going good.
Very good. Any other questions for BJ?
Just out of curiosity, BJ, up on the south side towards, right at the basement, the oval, it's like a storm drainage, concrete.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I just-
Anything you see concrete, that's NDOT storm drain system.
So that's a storm drain system.
Yes.
Reason for the oval, I'm just not used to seeing.
Oval is, there's something in the field that's conflicting with it that isn't gonna allow full round pipe to come in here, so they got some space restrictions, so they need to kind of squeeze it down.
So
And it makes it,
it's due to the space.
it's due to the space
Oh, okay.
restrictions and field conditions that
I
are.
was just wondering what
That was-
the new design.
There's an architectural requirement there too.
Yeah, so 100 years from now, when they tear it up, and I say, these guys did a pretty good job.
Just curious. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, BJ. Public comment?
On his report or the end of the meeting?
Public comment, final public comment, if you want to say anything.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I've got an ongoing concern regarding curb gutter codes not being enforced throughout the city, in particular on the corner of Ogden and Crawford Street. You've got a new water meter pit 11.5 feet away from the property line. Can't do that. It's got to be 4 feet. We have standards. Then you put boards in there, or somebody did. If that was at the cost of the city, you've got a problem. Curb and gutter should put in there would have protected the meter pit. I put a new curb gutter sidewalk at the direction of the city of Ely, and you guys turned around, not you in particular, but the city turned around and sued me after giving me proper direction. You got to stop the discrimination. It needs to come to an end. Mr. Chairman, I've not heard anything yet in regards to my question in regards to Mount Leader Power being contacted that some of their power poles need to be removed. or moved away so there's proper ADA access along the sidewalks in that area. This has been going on for months. New construction, ADA requirements need to be met. You got plenty of money that you're paying out for so-called professionals, and yet I'm not getting any answers. You need to answer that. Mr. Chairman, I've yet to be reimbursed for the sewer problem that I cured at 681 Parker. I've paid close to $3,000. You've yet to pay me with interest and penalties. Right now, you're at $8,241.67. At a previous meeting a year or so ago, you gave direction to Jennifer to send me a check. She failed to do that. You owe me the money, cut me the check.
You're dreaming,
I need
George.
my money.
You're dreaming again.
I'm not dreaming.
You're dreaming, trust me.
I want to remind you, you assisted a
If you pay your bill,
property
you'll have
owner.
more
No,
money.
I'm not refusing anything. I've got credits coming. You've got incompetent staff. They can't do their math. How can you do that to me and not give me the same consideration as others? How many times I got to tell you that? Get a calculator. You're allowing others not to pay a damn dime. I come before you and tell you what the problem is, and you ignore me. That's not going to cut it. I want equal protection under the law, Mr. Chairman, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, you might want to resign and try to do something else. That building needs to be coming back to the city. You're contracting it out.
If they cut my wages one more time, I'm going to quit.
Consider it done. Take a hike. Mr. Chairman, you've yet to address my previous request going back years now, for the requirement of backflow devices on 7th and Clark, the RV park next to the Copper Queen.
Thank you,
I think
George.
the Copper Queen owns it now.
Thank you.
Don't make regulations and rules that don't apply
Thank
to
you, George.
everybody.
Next speaker, please.
May 15th.
May 13th. Very good. Thank everybody for coming today. We stand adjourned.
Okay, take care.
Enjoy the rest of your day, sir.
This has been a Georgetown production. George Chachis reporting.